Hi, and thanks for watching. Now, I know I haven't posted very much recently, but that's because the British weather's been typically shit, and I haven't been able to do very much, and certainly not very much flying. So I thought I'd do this quick video and show you my budget flight sim setup. Um, just in case if anyone's interested, if you're learning, or if you're a private pilot, maybe you want to try things or practice things in a controlled way, or if you're just a flight sim enthusiast. Um, so yeah, I'll talk you through. It's not going to be an instructional video as such. It's just going to be talking you through what I'm using, kind of why I've done it that way, um, and this is something that I found useful during my training. Um, but it's not gonna have sort of up to date prices or links or anything like that, because I built this sort of 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm too lazy to look up to date links, so you can Google that stuff yourself. But before I start, I'll just quickly mention VR, um, which a lot of people have asked me about, and I have used and will try the VR headset, and it's great. It's very immersive. It's nice to be able to kind of look around, but it didn't work for me really for two reasons. So one, after flying around for sort of an hour or so, it started to get very hot and sweaty and steamed up, and it wasn't comfortable. And when I looked around, I could see things weren't where I was reaching for them. It was also a little bit disorienting, so I didn't like it. I also tried a head tracking thing, which was okay, but it wasn't great, and the benefit wasn't worth the added complexity and effort at startup. So yeah, in the end, I just resorted to mapping the views on buttons, um, which works for me. Um, so yeah, and as I said, it's a budget flight sim setup, but I will caveat that with one, it's not a professional flight sim, so it's not, something you can log hours on or anything like that. And two, when I say budget, you still need a decent gaming PC, with a GPU and a big screen, so it's not super cheap. Okay, so this is the setup here. I've got a 55-inch screen up here, but with the screen, the bigger the better, I'd say. Now, I've gone with this because it was cheaper and simpler than using sort of a multi-monitor setup. Um, then I've got this Turtle Beach Velocity 1 yoke and flight quadrant, which I found to be the most realistic for me, because I trained mostly on Cessnas, 152s and 172s. So this felt quite realistic. You've got the yoke here, and the spring tension is not too bad. It feels quite good. Um, so that's that. It's a little bit bulky, but it was, I think, the best I could find within a reasonable budget. What I liked about it is, as I said, I've trained on Cessnas, so this is kind of feels much more natural, having these little plungers here, which is a lot like the Cessnas. For me, obviously that's a throttle. What I've done is I've mapped the carb heat because it's fixed pitch prop, so I've mapped the carb heat to here. Just turn on the carb heat and off, which feels again more natural, kind of pulling out a plunger than using a button. And the other thing I really like about it is this trim wheel right here, which feels much more natural. and you can trim with it. Before I got this, I did try using a different setup and using the buttons to trim, and that was very awkward, very difficult to do. So I like the trim wheel. The buttons for me, because I normally do go through the startup process, especially when I was training, ATIS, all the everything from the beginning. So I mapped things like the ignition key on here, magnetos and ignition, handbrake, stuff like that. But you can map whatever you want. What I found really useful is I've mapped the flaps here, so flaps down, flaps up. So again, that feels quite natural as as you're flying. It feels like you're reaching for the right place. And finally, I've mapped the view buttons on here. You can map it on the left or the right, whatever you're more comfortable with. But on here, just sort of 45 degrees left and right, 90 degrees left and right. And for me, I found that that's really all I've needed. And then I've got these Logitech Cytec Pro rudder pedals. But to be honest, any rudder pedals will probably be fine. Okay, now we've had a look at the equipment. Let's have a look at flight sim. So the most important things really is the settings. So this is where I spent a lot of time working it out, and it's really dependent on the aircraft. So I'm using Flight Sim 2024, but you can use 2020. But the settings really depend on the aircraft that you're using. Now I was learning on a 152, so I'm using the stock Cessna 152 that comes with it. And the first thing we're going to look at is the camera settings. So you need to play around with the height and the zoom to get it to feel and to look right for the aircraft that you're using. So this is what I've got for the 152. I'd change that for the 172 slightly, but it's the height and the zoom. What you don't want to do is mess about with the horizontal position. It would make it weird. I did try that and it didn't work. And that's really it in terms of the general settings. The next thing is the controls. So this is where we need to set our curves, if you will. So let's have a look at the flight yoke first. And here we've got a lot of things mapped to it, but the important ones are the ailerons and elevators. So for the ailerons, I have just slightly quite a not slightly, I've significantly increased the extremity dead zone because I don't need it to go any further than that, and this feels about right when you turn. As you can see, my yoke is now, after a few years of use, slightly off center. So that's why the neutral is slightly off to adjust for that. But you shouldn't need to do that. And the elevators, you can have a look at those. So the elevators, I've again adjusted the extremity dead zone and the sensitivity. So we've got this kind of curve here, and this gives you the right feeling, feedback, if you will, when you're moving the elevators, when you're moving the yoke up and down. And I needed that the sensitivity on the extremities, just for sort of when you're flaring, when you pull really hard, you get a little bit more out of it. So this feels about natural for me compared to flying a real 152. And finally, we'll look at the rudder pedals. The brake axes I kind of leave alone as they are. Uh, so the rudders, again, I've adjusted the sensitivity and the extremity dead zone to make them feel more natural. Otherwise, they just feel a bit too sensitive, and it feels a bit wrong. Okay, so let's go for a quick circuit around Southend, and I'll show you how it flies in flight sim. So a couple of things I need to do before I start flying. I normally would remove the yoke because I've got one here in front of me. Don't need flaps. Um, and I need to adjust the trimmer because sometimes it will show as neutral, but as soon as you change it, it will just jump and it can be a little bit awkward to deal with. So we're all ready to go. Now I'm starting on the runway because I'm not going to take you through the startup and taxi and all of that. So let's get going. To smoothly get to full power. T's and P's are good. Airspeed's alive. Bird in the nose wheel. And we'll climb away at 70 knots. So there we go. We've done a quick circuit. That's what it looks like. So that's it. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that, or I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, or if you want help with a flight sim setup or anything like that, feel free to leave a comment or reach out. And yeah, thanks for watching.